Sex is the life force energy that runs through us all. Can you use sexual energy for your spiritual evolution? Or perhaps for emotional healing? Is it even possible? Clinical Sexologist Dr. Martha Tara Lee will explore all these and more on Eros Evolution on OMTimes Radio.
Hello, and welcome to Eros Evolution, where sexuality and spirituality meets. This is Dr. Martha Tara Lee. I'm a clinical sexologist based in Singapore, and my company is called Eros Coaching. That's Eros Coaching.com. I've been in practice for 7 years, and today we are talking about vaginismus. This is a topic that is very close to my heart, or vagina, because this is the issue that concerns women. Let me read to you the show's title today and description. The title for today's show is Vaginismus, a virgin's curse? ? Vaginismus is a condition that happens when a woman's vagina shuts down, making sex difficult or impossible. This debilitating condition appears to happen to 1 in 10 women, affecting their sexual lives, relationships, and fertility. This show explains what vaginismus is, what clinical sexologist Dr. Martha Tara Lee does in her work with more than 300 women with vaginismus, and her tips and suggestions for couples. So let me introduce more about myself. For the past few episodes, for most of the shows under Eros Evolution, I've been interviewing guests, and occasionally from time to time I take the show by myself, and sometimes it is due to scheduling issues and challenges that does come up from time to time. But today is a very special show because this is the number one issue why people come to see me in Singapore. So I'm a sexologist based in Singapore. I'm Singaporean Chinese, I'm Asian, and I was born and bred in Singapore. So why is it and how did I come to become a sexologist and really becoming an advocate for sex in Singapore? This is really quite unheard and uncommon. And really a big reason why this happened is because I was very curious about sex. Growing up, I had a slight inclination that maybe sex would be wonderful and amazing. And later on when it was, I realized that sex is magical, and I wanted to be able to help people with sex and sexuality later on, because I had friends who had problems with their sex lives, and I was very frustrated trying to explain to them that it's amazing for me and how, and I started wondering how I could help them. It was frustrating. Then I looked around and realized that actually nobody in Singapore was really standing up for sex or the positivity of sex or the importance of it. Sex is often talked about in negative ways, and this started my journey of wanting to become a sexologist and later getting the training that I needed in the US. So I've been in practice for 7 years. I've worked with more than 300 couples with vaginismus. Every week, I have a few inquiries relating to women who cannot have sex, have painful sex, are unable to consummate their marriage, and or have vaginismus. So I know it's not one and the same thing. However, I have to say that the treatment that I have in working with women who cannot have sex because of inexperience, say, for instance, both the men and women are virgins, and with painful sex, is really not that different. The treatment is not that different. It's a matter of how inhibited, how scared, how unwilling they are to try. So there's this whole spectrum of how much fear, anxiety, and difficulties people have when it comes to having penetrative sex. So let me explain a little bit more about myself before we go on. I have a doctorate in human sexuality, certificates in counseling, coaching, and sex therapy. I have been in practice for 7 years, like I mentioned a few times now. And I am the sex expert for Men's Health Singapore, Men's Health Malaysia. And I contribute to YourTango, Elephant Journal. And I have been voted the top 50 inspiring women under 40 by Her World That's the top leading female magazine in Singapore in July 2010, and one of top 100 inspiring women by CozyCot in March 2011. CozyCot is a leading web portal, again, for women. So I have 2 books out. The first one is called Love, Sex and Everything in Between, and I have a second book that was just released last month called Orgasmic Yoga. It explores the link between masturbation, meditation, and everything in between. So let's move on to vaginismus proper. Like I mentioned, it's the condition that happens when a woman's vagina shuts down, making penetration difficult or impossible. What this means is that often when you look at vaginismus, you'll see the word spasm. They describe vaginismus as an involuntary spasm of the vagina. What this simply means is that the vaginal muscles tense up, especially the entrance of the vagina. This is why penetration is difficult and impossible. Why does the vagina tense up? In my humble experience over the last 7 years, working with more than 300 women, most of them are virgins, most of them have primary vaginismus. The cause, in my opinion, is that they have some kind of sexual inhibition due to a phobia. This phobia is due to the fear of pain. It's very important that you know that vaginismus is usually linked to pain and or fear of pain. I have often had male clients exasperated and explaining that they're not able to have penetrative sex because she doesn't even allow him to touch her. She doesn't even allow him to go near her vagina with his finger or with his penis. This phobia, this irrational fear that they have is linked to fear of pain. It's very important that you know that. Sometimes the woman may not have experienced pain, she's just having fear of pain. It's irrational to her, it's irrational to him. It's very important to know this is fear, usually fear of pain. It's involuntary, it's not something that she feels that she can control, and it is not usually due to, a lot of people like to assume, it's not necessarily due to some kind of sexual trauma or abuse that happened in her life. A lot of the clients who come in do not understand what is happening. It's a little bit like somebody who has a fear of flying, somebody who has a fear of drowning, somebody who has a fear of swimming and drowning, or fear of just going into the water and trying to swim. Sometimes it's just irrational. We are different. Some people have a really positive experience when they try to have sex, and some people don't. For people who have fear of pain, usually in my experience, it is vaginismus. Why am I emphasizing this again and again? Because this is a very big misconception that people have, that vaginismus is physical, that her body just won't work. It's usually linked to how the person thinks about sex. Okay, I mentioned primary vaginismus. There's also secondary vaginismus. Primary vaginismus is when a woman has never had penetrative sex and she's having this condition where the vagina shuts down, making penetration difficult or impossible. In secondary vaginismus, it happens when a woman has had sex and she's having difficulty with having penetration. Sometimes it is linked to, for instance, some kind of trauma that happened, pain that happened in the genital areas, causing her to tense up and anticipate pain. In my personal opinion, I feel that it's easier to work with women with secondary vaginismus than primary vaginismus, simply because the woman has a context and a better relationship with her vagina. So all she needs to do is really work through the actual phobia, the actual pain that she's feeling in her vagina, and training her vaginal muscles. Such women would have a better connection with their vagina than a woman who has primary vaginismus, who probably and usually doesn't have much of a relationship with her vagina. So this is pretty much in a nutshell what vaginismus is about. And there are other kinds of sexual pains that women feel in attempting to have sex. Women with vaginismus will have pain. However, there are different kinds of pain when it comes to the vagina, and it is not to be confused with other kinds of pain. So if you can look up vulvodynia, this is also a condition that happens that is related to a woman's vagina. So vulvodynia spells as VULVODYNIA. There are women who have been diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome, with autoimmune inflammatory disorder, with interstitial cystitis, and there are different kinds of pain when it comes to penetration. There may be pain in the vagina, there may be pain at the entrance of the vagina because of inflammation at the entrance. Those are not what I'm talking about in today's show. I'm focusing specifically on vaginismus. And this is very much psychological. Although the symptoms look physical, for instance, her tightening up her legs, her pushing away the man, her crying when attempting to have penetrative sex, these are all what is happening at the surface. What's really happening underneath is a fear. And a lot of the women who come to me come because they have had this problem for a while now, suspected that they may have vaginismus, or only realized they have it after marriage. So in Asia, it's not uncommon for lots of men and women to decide to wait until after marriage to have sex. So we're having a break. So more about vaginismus after this break.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome to The Gathering Around My Kitchen Table on Equilarium FM, Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join my guests as we integrate spirituality into everyday reality with vibrant conversations, inspired interviews, and my latest channeled guidance to inspire and brighten your day. I'm Claire Johnson, and together we'll be raising vibrations across the nations.
The truth is, you can't change the world if you're broke. I know, I've tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business. Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
You are listening to Eros Evolution on the OMTimes Radio Network. You can share this show with your friends right now by sending them the link omtimes.com/mobile. Our mobile player is so advanced it doesn't need you to download any app. All you need is this link, and try it now. Your friends will love it. It's omtimes.com/mobile. Coming back to today's show, we're talking about vaginismus in today's episode. And just before the break, I was explaining what vaginismus is about and explaining how it is different from other kinds of sexual pain. it's very important to understand that vaginismus is usually linked to a fear of pain in my personal experience. So here are some common misconceptions on vaginismus. A woman with a small vagina is more likely to suffer from vaginismus during intercourse? No. A vagina is not a piece of pipe. It's not made of plastic. It's actually flexible enough to expand and accommodate a penis that is fully erect. However, this involuntary tightening of the vaginal muscles can lead to painful intercourse. Another misconception, vaginismus occurs only during intercourse, is not true. It may occur even during penile penetration happens. Before it happens, making penetration difficult or impossible. So it starts to happen even before the man sometimes touches her. An intact hymen is the reason why women suffer from vaginismus. It's not true. This involuntary tightening of the vaginal muscles happens subconsciously. It's not to the presence or absence of a hymen. A woman who has given birth may not suffer from vaginismus. As I mentioned before, there are women who have secondary vaginismus, and it is usually due to a painful or traumatic experience during the birth process. For instance, for women who experience this after delivery. Vaginismus is more common in single than married women. It's not true. The marital status has nothing to do with vaginismus. It can happen to both single or married women. It's a condition that goes away on its own without the need of any intervention. This is not true. We don't know what we don't know. If you don't know how to overcome vaginismus, then it's likely to stay that way. A woman suffering with vaginismus needs to seek assistance from people who are experts in the field of treating this problem. The earlier she seeks help, the higher the chances of having pain-free intercourse. This is because the longer this problem drags on, the more the woman starts to have all kinds of walls and barriers towards overcoming this issue. I found that it's much harder working with clients who have had vaginismus for 10 over years. Yes, I've had clients who have vaginismus for more than 10 years. My record is 15 years. So people who seek help much later, they have a very strong belief that the problem is very difficult, it's insolvable, and really it's not that it's a difficult problem to overcome, it's that they didn't know what they could do about it. So if you try the same thing, you'll get the same results. If you keep trying to insert something big into the vagina and you're having pain, then the less likely you want to try the next time. And then if you just keep trying it in the same way, having the same kinds of pain, and then it's just going to reinforce actually in the mind that it's a very, very difficult problem to overcome. So it's very important that sometimes we can be very hard on ourselves. We want results, and so we push ourselves, we force ourselves, and it doesn't feel good. It's painful, and then they get stuck because the next time around they don't want to try. They need more time to work up the courage or the will to try it, and then they have the same results. And so this kind of defeating mentality just really builds on each other, and this is one of the reasons why they start to believe that vaginismus is very difficult to overcome. I think as a society, we tend to push ourselves very, very hard, and we don't really know how to honor ourselves, respect our bodies, and become gentler with ourselves. And this is why being able to seek out the correct helping professional will be able to help resolve this problem much more easily and effectively. Having said that, I have clients who go and seek out help over the, say, 10 years of their marriage or relationship, and they are not able to get the correct help for them because the person that they went to really doesn't know how to help them with vaginismus. So the number one person somebody with vaginismus goes to is usually a gynecologist, or in the US they call it OBGYN. A gynecologist, at least in Singapore, doesn't necessarily have training in vaginismus. So they don't know what they can say or how to help their client. And some gynaes are better than others. It's very much an individual experience. It's the same thing how you have different experiences when you go to a restaurant or you go to different restaurants. Every restaurant has a different kind of flavor to it. It really depends on who's running it, and sometimes it even depends on what mood they are in on that day. So this is why professional help can differ quite a bit in terms of the experience that you have, because gynaes don't necessarily specialize in vaginismus or understand much about it. They may give some advice that actually makes the woman feel worse. For instance, many of my clients come in and say that their gynae had given them the advice of, oh, you just need to try harder. I just mentioned it doesn't necessarily work. Their gynae would say things like, you just need to insert, but then the woman doesn't even dare to try to insert. So it's not about inserting, it's about the fear that she has before inserting that she needs to overcome, which is not useful when you tell her, just insert. So try harder, just insert, or just relax. Just relax doesn't help because the woman doesn't know how to relax. We may know how to relax the upper part of our body. We may know how to relax our body, but we may not know how to relax our vagina specifically. And when a woman is a virgin and has fear of penetration, she is not really having yet perhaps a relationship with her vagina, and it's very important to help her at where she's at. So this inconsistent advice that women are getting makes them feel even worse. They may try a second opinion and go to a different gynae, and again, this causes the problem to drag on further. So by the time they come to me, they would have had this problem for many, many years, and as I mentioned, the longer it drags on, the more challenging it can be at times. Other women may go to, say, a psychologist who only works on how the mind thinks. Even though I talked about how vaginismus is a psychological fear, usually fear of pain, just working on the mind doesn't really help. It's like saying you have a fear of swimming. I bring you through talk therapy. We talk about your fear of swimming, and every session we talk about your fear of swimming, and I teach you breathing exercises. Even hypnosis, which is similar, really only tackles the problem on one dimension, which is the thinking part. If you want to overcome your fear of swimming, you do need to get into the water. You do need to do something physical. It doesn't have to be a big step. You don't have to jump into the pool or throw someone into the pool. However, even like sitting with a person at the pool, playing with water, taking one step at a time into the shallow end of the baby pool can help someone overcome their fear of swimming. So there needs to be, in my opinion, something physical accompanying the talk, because that is, in my opinion, the fastest way. I've had clients go to hypnotherapist, and in fact, I have a diploma in hypnotherapy. So I am very much pro-hypnosis. However, in my personal experience, having worked with 300 couples who have gone to hypnosis, they have actually shared with me that hypnotherapy does not really help them. So I just want to be very clear, I'm not against seeking out alternative treatments. Anything that makes you feel better, there are many roads that lead to Rome. I'm not against it, but in my personal experience, what I'm concerned about when a woman comes to see me with vaginismus is how can I help her to overcome this in the fastest, shortest amount of time, because most of the time, this issue is stopping them from being able to have sex, and not only that, it's actually preventing them from going on to be able to have the baby that they want. They want to be able to conceive. And because this is linked to their fertility, it actually causes them a lot of anxiety. There are, of course, also fears around losing their partners, around infidelity, around the partner deserting them, having an affair, and so on and so forth. These are all the other emotional relationship issues that complicate the problem of vaginismus. I feel so passionately about this issue. This episode is just full of information, and if needed, maybe you might want to listen to this show again so that you can absorb everything that I'm saying. There are also women who seek out Botox. Botox does force the vaginal muscles to relax involuntarily. However, one of the negative effects of Botox is that it numbs sensation. When it numbs sensation, what happens psychologically is the woman can't feel, and so she's being penetrated. She may actually have even more fear, and that may not solve the issue of vaginismus. Botox is considered to be highly dangerous because the vagina is just full of nerve endings, and if Botox is inserted into the vein, it can actually be fatal. So there are some places that advocate Botox for vaginismus. Having worked with clients who consider Botox apparently is a highly dangerous treatment method. Also, it really bypasses the physical sensation and the actual learning. It's just like swimming, right? You have a fear of swimming, and instead of getting comfortable and playing with water, you get the person to be kind of numb in their body, and then before getting them to swim, well, they're not going to be able to really swim because their body feels numb. So that can actually cause sex to be painful. And in my opinion, some of the pivotal moments of our lives actually determine our relationship with certain things for the rest of our lives. So if your first time sex is an awful, terrible, painful experience, then this belief may continue for the rest of your life. So, for instance, I had a really wonderful, empowering first-time sex experience when I first lost my virginity with my partner. And because it was so empowering, it really anchored for me a very strong belief that sex is wonderful, amazing, magical, spiritual. And this actually led me to wanting to stand up for sex and be an advocate. So this is important, your first-time sex experience. So more about vaginismus after this break.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Looking for inspiration?
Want to be inspired?
Not sure where to go?
Find Mark and Kim every Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on Inspired Living.
Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience and all things spiritual.
Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
Join Elliot Jollish, the business therapist, each Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern for the Elliot Jollish Hour, as he interviews business experts on your behalf. And you're invited to email your business questions to questions@ecjgroup.com for answers, live, on air every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Elliot Jollish Hour. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is. A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to the show. We have another half an hour to go before this show has to end. And I've just covered so far what is vaginismus and what are some of the misconceptions when it comes to this sexual issue. And also I talked about some of the helping professionals that people go to, and my personal opinion of what could really help with vaginismus. So I really recommend going to a sexologist like myself, somebody who has extensive training in human sexuality, and especially with working with dysfunctions. Not all sexologists understand or work extensively with clients with vaginismus. I happen to do that by default of the fact that I'm based in Asia, and for some reason, because of lack of sex education, the lack of information, it seems that it's an epidemic here in Asia. Internationally, it's a statistic that 1 in 10 women have it. However, in my practice, I get a few inquiries every week. I'm not kidding you, I get a few inquiries every week from women who have vaginismus, and they actually, I have had clients fly in to see me because of this condition. So I am based in Singapore, and our closest neighbors Malaysia. I have clients who come in from Malaysia and Indonesia, Philippines, Bangladesh, Pakistan, China, and I even had inquiries from as far as Canada, because this particular person is Asian and felt that they would be more comfortable working with me. So this is something that people are coming to me for, because they don't get a healthcare professional who specializes in vaginismus in their country. If you are interested to get some free videos that I have, you can go to this website. That's Eros Coaching, eroscoaching.com/vaginismus free. So there are 3 free videos that I have on vaginismus. And if you go to my YouTube channel, you key in Dr. Martha Lee, or you can find my YouTube channel through my website. That's eroscoaching.com. If you go to my YouTube channel, you will be able to get about 5 to 6 free videos that I have produced specifically about vaginismus. So I have 2 videos using the analogy of vaginismus and swimming, and another on vaginismus and makeup. So these are the things that I do to help to get people to understand more about this problem, because it really is such a huge problem in Singapore, and I am very passionate about educating as many women as I can about this issue. When I first started my practice, it really broke my heart when women would write me long emails, 2 pages even, describing their problem but not having a name to it. Since I've been doing this for 7 years, I have been talking about this extensively everywhere I go, written articles about it. I am starting to get women being able to name this condition. Being able to name it is a big part of, I feel, overcoming this, because then they can actually seek out the information that they need with the right term. They can go and look up books and resources and free videos. If they don't know what it is, then how are they going to be able to look it up? So this is why I talk about this extensively. Some of the myths that I have with regards to women having penetrative sex is that as long as you love your partner a lot, you will be able to have penetrative sex. This is again another myth. So I'm just elaborating more. These are some of my own that I've come up with over the years. As long as you love your partner, you will be able to be aroused and more relaxed, and therefore be able to have penetrative sex. It's not true, because vaginismus is a phobia. It's not quite the same. Sex involves the body, sex involves the mind, sex involves the heart. So when you have emotions with love for your partner, doesn't necessarily mean that you know how to relax your vagina. So you may really have a strong desire of driving a car. You go into a car without a driver next to you, without knowing how to operate the car, will you be able to drive it? Some people are just naturally talented. They get into a car, they've seen people in a car, they get into a car, they kind of get what they need to do just from being able to observe what other people have done, and then they can just immediately drive. Some people are just gifted in that way, other people are not. Some people need to have a driving instructor next to them. For instance, it took me 4 attempts before I passed my driving, and that goes to show that I don't really have very strong motor skills. So Vaginismus is the same. Being able to have sex is the same. You need to be able to learn how to be able to have sex physically, and this takes practice. This takes maybe doing some very simple exercises that I do teach my clients. Another misconception relating to sex being emotional only is that that as long as you love each other, the penis is supposed to glide in. It's like an eel. It just glides in and it's supposed to be slippery. There's not supposed to be any pain. It's not true. Our vagina is flexible. It helps if you ease something small first. You get used to something small, especially if you're a virgin, versus trying with something big. Small object, small pain. Big object, big pain. So a lot of women, for lack of understanding, they just keep trying with the penis again and again over many, many years. And they keep getting the same results, which is not being able to have any progress. And then they start to believe that vaginismus is impossible to overcome. There's also a belief that first-time sex will definitely be very, very, very painful. And this fear causes them to just be really, really scared because they don't know what to expect. As a society, we don't talk about sex enough. We don't talk about it in positive ways. We don't talk about it in empowering ways. And therefore, a lot of these beliefs and attitudes around sex is one of fear, anxiety, uncertainty. And actually, the uncertainty can grow when you have difficulties. And people don't understand because they watch movies or maybe they watch porn. And it seems to be so easy and effortless for those people. Think about a performer, a gymnast, an Olympian swimmer would make swimming look very effortless, or a gymnast would make tossing and turning very easy because they've had lots and lots of practice. So we look at them at the end of their practice and see how easy and effortless it is, and then blame ourselves and beat ourselves up for not being able to do exactly what they do. So this is a little bit like what happens when we watch porn. We think that this is how sex should be, and then we beat ourselves up when sex is awkward, uncomfortable, we have aches and pains, and we don't like certain positions, and we're just not comfortable in any position. So even though there is going to be awkwardness and pain, it's not the kind of pain that women think it is, because as a society, like I mentioned, we don't really talk about sex. Another fear that some of the women with vaginismus has is that vaginismus or virgins will have a lot of pain. So because it's first time sex, they will have a lot of pain, and also they will bleed. That the blood is going to be like a lot of blood. It's going to be like gushing out, and it's they imagine the worst pain that they can have. So sometimes the projection that we have to something that hasn't happened, it has not happened, actually makes it very, very difficult, seemingly impossible to overcome. So having said all this, I'm sure all of you are wondering, like, okay, so what do I do? How do I overcome this? So I have some tips around this. The first thing, as I already began to hint, is to take small steps. So if you read out about the vaginismus, and some women do, they read about using dilator kits. So a dilator kit or dilator set is usually made up of 4 cylindrical looking plastic cones that is phallic, it's long, and because it looks big and long, the women get really, really scared. Just because it looks big and long doesn't mean that all of it has to go in. It's more important that the woman focuses on how fat the dilator is rather than how long. The longness helps because the hand can use it to guide much more easily. When we use our fingers, by the time my clients get to, say, 2 fingers, they find that it's not that they have a lot of fear around penetration anymore, it's that it's very awkward because their hand, their arm is not long enough. Therefore, being able to use a dilator kit that is long actually facilitates being able to insert it in. So there are some people who hate how the dilator kit looks because it's usually white, cylindrical, plastic. It doesn't feel good, it doesn't look good. And if you have an attitude problem around dilators, don't use dilators then. You can try using sex toys or vibrators of different sizes. It's more important that you are comfortable with what you're using. I don't force my clients to use dilators, although if you read online about vaginismus, usually the first thing they say is try dilators. What a lot of articles online don't say is that it's extremely important to be aroused. When you are aroused, your vagina does relax and it's more lubricated and it's more dilated. You feel very different when you are warmed up to run a marathon than when you are not warmed up, and then you end up with muscle cramps and spasms and things like that. This is a little bit similar with vaginismus. You do need to be aroused, because when you're aroused, your body does feel very different, and this is more challenging for women who I have worked with who don't understand their body, have never looked at their genitals, have never masturbated, and don't know what an orgasm is like. This is why working with a coach to answer all your questions and break down the steps into smaller chunks will be very beneficial. Besides being open to using dilators or some object to use for penetration, besides dilators, you can use sex toys, vibrators, like I mentioned, or you can use your finger or work with your partner. Sometimes practicing inserting with your partner is not the best thing if the partner is already very frustrated about the situation, if your partner is not somebody who is patient, or if your partner is not somebody who is able to take instructions. Because you are having the fear and the pain, it's very important that you work with somebody who can really match you in terms of your pacing. So more about vaginismus after this break. We are starting to talk about what you can do about vaginismus.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes.
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
Have you bought into the idea that you have to work hard for your money, that business is hard? I will share some dynamic access consciousness tools to get you out of your own way so you can create a business that actually succeeds. Join me, Simone Millicers, on The Joy of Business at 4 p.m. Mondays Eastern.
Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake. Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Welcome back to Eros Evolution, where sexuality and spirituality meets. Today we're talking about a topic that's very close to my vagina, and that is vaginismus. I've been a sexologist for 7 years. I've worked with more than 300 women with vaginismus, and this is a topic that's very close to me because I'm a woman and I understand what it means to have pain and fears around keeping your partner, fidelity, and also the desire to have a baby. So this is something that I work extensively with women about, and it's frustrating that not more people know about this and what else they can do to overcome this issue. So I have plenty of resources online. You can look up this quiz that I have called Could You Have Vulvodynia? So this is something that you could do to rule out whether you have any other kinds of pain when it comes to sex. So you just go to Google and you just key in Eros Coaching quiz, Could You Have Vulvodynia or Vulvodynia? That's VULVODYNIA. And also you can get my free video series and called eroscoaching.com/vaginismus free. I also have a link that I basically put all the information together. If you go to Google, you key in Eros Coaching, ladies who cannot have sex, you'll be able to find this link that I basically just put everything, all the links together in that one link for ladies who cannot have sex, Eros Coaching. I have an online training program for women who have vaginismus. It's called eroscoaching.com/sex-possible. So the program is called Sex Possible. And once again, the link is eroscoaching.com/sex-possible. So just before break, I was beginning to talk about what women can do if they have the issue of vaginismus. I started to talk about the possibility of using dilator kits and how it's very important to use something that you are comfortable with. If not dilator kit, then perhaps a vibrator or your own finger or your partner's fingers. I also want to talk a little bit about having a positive attitude about this whole concept of practice. If you practice with something small, then you have small pain. It's very important that you understand you don't have to suffer. I also talked about arousal. Arousal really helps with having less pain. So I sometimes use this analogy of a seesaw. I'm not sure if you've ever played with a seesaw growing up. Basically, on one end is pain, on one end is pleasure. If you have more pleasure, you will have less pain. If you're focusing on the pain, you will have big pain. If you focus on the pleasure, you have more pleasure and less pain. So the link between pleasure and pain is very much there. A lot of women hear advice of, oh yeah, you need to practice with dilators. They read about this online, they start practicing with dilators. By the time they get to size 2 dilator, they're having so much of pain, they're not able to continue. And then they beat themselves up and say, why am I not able to overcome? I've been practicing, I use a dilator. A lot of places don't mention the importance of arousal, as I mentioned just now before the break. It's very important to listen to your body, be gentle with your body, honor your body, take the time to have a relationship with sexuality. This is something that some people don't understand because problem solve a problem. I have had clients that I've worked with when I first started my practice. They are so anxious to overcome vaginismus, and I am anxious for them to overcome vaginismus. And, I want to really help them. I do my best. What happened when I first started was that I do help them. Some of them do, many of them do overcome vaginismus. And then what happens is they don't actually enjoy sex. If you're going to have a relationship or have sex for the rest of your life, you do not want to take the time to also at the same time develop a good relationship with sex or learn how to enjoy sex and not just treat sex as a task or duty or chore, that sex is something that you dread. I have had clients who have vaginismus, are able to have their baby by sheer torture of getting the penis in, and then it's extremely painful. The man ejaculates, they have their baby, but sex is painful. So this becomes something that they try to avoid as much as possible, and it causes a lot of tension in the relationship. When I talk about practice and having a positive attitude about it, I have had clients who argue with me, and we spend a long time in the session because they don't like the word practice. If you want to drive, you need to practice. If you want to pass a driving test, you need to practice. If you want to swim, you want to be a good swimmer, you need to go practice. However, when it comes to sex, somehow I'm not allowed to use the word practice with women who have vaginismus. It's important that you use whatever word you want to use. We can do play, you can call it something else. It's really about being able to break it down into smaller steps. So sometimes removing the emotions, because women generally are more emotional, generally. And when we get emotional about something and we just go by how we feel, sometimes it's not a good indicator of what we should be doing. Like, we don't feel like going to work, but we go to work and then we go through some of our routines, like get our morning coffee, for instance, and then we get into the swing of things, and it's not so bad being at work. So similarly with women with vaginismus, being able to understand and go deeper with their relationship, with their sexuality, taking time to understand their bodies, to masturbate, to learn how to have an orgasm, to understand what parts of their body feels good, is part of the process of being able to have a good relationship with sex. So some women have more issues than others. Some women are comfortable with masturbating and having an orgasm, just not with penetration. That's fine. It's really about being able to do so in small steps. So having a positive attitude around practice. And then another very important exercise that I teach my clients is this practice called Kegels. So it's a Kegels. I don't really have so much time to go into it. You can look it up. You can key in Eros Coaching Kegels, and you'll be able to find my article talking about it. That's Kegels. So today I talked a lot about so many things, and I tried to squeeze in as much content as I can into today's show. I cannot cover everything. Everything that I know about vaginismus or overcoming vaginismus is in my online training program called Sex Possible. Sometimes when you get an online training program, is that because it's yours. Some people do sit on it and they don't take it seriously and they don't actually work at it. I can share education. I can talk about anatomy. I can talk about the sexual response cycle, what happens to your body during sex. I can share exercises, but nobody's going to be able to do them for you. I can't do the exercises for you. So being able to learn and be educated helps. However, being able to take small steps and practice, if I can use that word, is more important than anything else. Being able to go to a sexologist, a sex therapist who specializes in vaginismus is very important. And also somebody that I would like to ask that you look up, which is a pelvic floor specialist. Some physiotherapists, they are also pelvic floor specialists. They may be able to help work with you hands-on to help to relax those muscles and not go into a kind of reflex, like a fight or flight mode, where your body thinks it's under attack and then starts to clam up. And that's the unlearning that we need to do. It takes time for your body to register sensation, and it feels very new. It's all very normal. When I was a virgin, this is exactly what I did. So in my online program, Sex Possible, I do share my virginity story and how me and my partner overcome my virginity together through small progressive steps as well. And because it was so positive and empowering, that was how I had such a positive attitude and belief about the importance of sex. So because today's show was really focusing more on vaginismus and overcoming it, and me trying to squeeze as much content as I can into this show, I really want to end with talking a little bit about how sex to me is spiritual. When two people come together and are in union, I've had women say this, and I used to feel this way, is that the day I had sex, for the first time, I actually felt more woman. I know some feminists will get offended about what I'm saying. How can a woman is a woman? How does sex make you more woman? I just felt more adult. So that's the thunder. I'm not sure whether they can hear it. It's starting to rain here. It makes me feel more women. It helps me feel more complete. It helps me feel more of, I guess like being able to go through the different stages of life, and being able to have sex is one of the stages. when you are in union with someone, even though maybe some of you have not had that opportunity. This union is not just emotional, it's not just physical, it's also spiritual. And so Eros Evolution is all about talking about the link between sex and spirituality. And for me, there is really something very sacred about sharing of your body with someone. If you talk about sex being energetic, sex being an exchange of energy, then it is spiritual. This is why the Bible says two becomes one. This sense that you become in union with someone is very, very intimate. So for those of you out there who have vaginismus, I really want to encourage you not to give up, to seek help, even if it's not with me, to start to understand that pushing yourself too hard until you break is really not a good idea. Sometimes being gentler on yourself is more important. So this has been Dr. Martha Tara Lee of Eros Coaching, and next week we will be talking about men's issues. So tune in to Eros Evolution next week. Stay in touch.